Welcome to The Tech Ranch, live and local here on SuperTalk 1270. The latest gadgets, online security, websites and apps, social media, and so much more. How can technology help you? Let's find out. It's time for The Tech Ranch on SuperTalk 1270.
From our studios in beautiful Mandan, North Dakota, along the mighty Missouri River, here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
The world as we know it is changing rapidly. Maybe I should start that over again.
Yeah.
All right. The world as we know it.
Go back to bed. I'll get up again. And
yeah. The world as we know it is changing rapidly. I figured that maybe the sentence would make more sense if people heard just more than the last two words of it, Jim. So yeah. Anyway,
my bad.
That's okay. It's okay. We've been kind of scrambling to get the show together this morning. One of the components driving the change is additive printing, or it is more commonly known as 3D printing. Writer and editor Kat McClintock is in studio to discuss the fascinating world of 3D printing. Later in the show, Ken Sanders with the Volt Report. He's making his glorious return to the show, reporting on vehicles that drive themselves and other exciting technology. At the control panel, producer extraordinaire, Mr. Jim Walsh.
Hello.
Oh, see, now you're having mic issues.
Okay,
there
I
we
forgot
go.
to turn my mic on.
There we go.
Okay, it's been a weird weekend.
And it's been
I
kind
slept
of
all weekend. I may never wake up.
It could be a continuation of that great dream you're having of doing the Tech Ranch over and over and over again, right?
I'm in the twilight zone. No, it was the Benadryl. Definitely the Benadryl.
Were you not feeling well over the weekend? Allergies?
Well, allergies. The allergies, they're better. I mean, with the rain, it got better.
Okay.
But the weekend started out with, it's been a bad year for allergies. Anybody who has hay fever can tell you. It's
really?
been a rough year, yeah.
A lot of pollen in the air, huh?
A lot of pollen.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Although, I think you and I talked about this maybe a month or two ago. I've noticed that my eyes water a little bit more this year, so I'm not sure if that's something to do with that or not either.
Plus I live in a house with 2 cats. That doesn't help. I mean, I like the cats, but...
You're somewhat allergic to them, though, aren't you?
Oh, I'm very allergic to them.
Wow, the sacrifices you make.
I know. I mean, my wife loves them. We both found them. They're both rescue cats.
Okay.
They were both strays that we took in and found a home for, basically, with us.
Yep.
But I got to remember not to pet the cat and then rub my eyes. If I do that, all bets are off.
Wow.
Game over, man.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's good to know that. So, of course, we have Kat McClintock here. Kat is a freelance writer and editor, and I'm not going to go through. I got this bio of the things that you do, but you have a degree in CAD.
No.
So you have a degree in CAD journalism.
Technical, no, not even technical journalism. It's now you're confusing me even.
Good.
Technical communication.
Communication. Okay, so you write a lot about CAD.
Right. My primary clients are 3D CAD companies.
Okay. Wonderful. And I just thought it would be fun to have you in the studio today and talk. We talk a lot about 3D printing on this show, and the world has changed a lot because of 3D printing. But we're not even close to where this is going, are we?
I don't think so.
So let's just go back a couple years. And when were you first introduced to 3D printing?
I started hearing about it maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I remember it just lit me up. I was thinking, oh my gosh, the possibilities. I mean, you start doing the logic about, what could you do if you could be printing products on demand?
Right.
What would that mean? How would that change the items that you're able to print? What would it mean about where printing would take place, where manufacturing would take place? The consequences, we're just getting started with what we can do with 3D, with additive manufacturing.
Yeah,
it's a more correct term.
Right. Yeah, we always talk about, UAVs and drones as well. I mean, UAVs are obviously the more correct term, but generally talk about drones just like we talk about 3D printing. So, and there's a variety of different ways to do additive printing, which is why it's called additive printing, because there's different models, different materials, all this different stuff that's going on. Are you familiar with RepRap? RepRap, I'm sorry.
I might be. Tell me more about that.
It's the open source code that kind of got 3D printing going back in 2005, and pretty much even today, everybody still uses RepRap as the code for 3D printing. So all of the manufacturers that are making 3D printers, including when Jim and I laughed about this the other week. There's a 3D printer now that when you buy it, it comes with pre-programmed to print additional 3D printers. Yeah, it's just hilarious, absolutely hilarious. But yeah, that's the basis of 3D printing is RipRap, and you can go and check it out and develop code around what they have developed originally, so which is kind of cool. So
my understanding was then from the professional perspective, I'm thinking 3D Systems, who developed the first stereolithography system, and that tends to be, at least on the professional side, I think the starting point for a lot of people when they talk about additive manufacturing.
So let's go back to stereolithography. What are you talking about there?
Well, it's one of the many methods of doing additive manufacturing.
Okay.
And stereolithography is, I don't want to get this wrong, it's one of those methods, and it involves curing basically you have a vat of fluid, and a beam of energy will cure a layer, and then it will drop down and cure the next layer, and drop down and cure the next layer.
Gotcha.
And that's one method of doing additive manufacturing.
Okay. So what's the first thing that you ever saw printed with a 3D printer?
To be honest, it was here in Bismarck.
Okay.
I went out to, I'm going to get everybody's names wrong, Evan, who has...
Oh, yeah, Evan Anderson, yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Evan Anderson, he has Innovative Solutions.
Yep.
And he was giving me a tour of his business, and I noticed in the corner, that's a 3D printer, isn't it? And he showed me what it did. He showed me how it worked, and how it had little structures that you broke off. It has, because a lot of 3D printers will need support structures as they print.
Right.
And yeah, that was the first one I ever saw.
Okay. And what's probably the most fascinating thing you've probably looked at in the last week or month or whatever, moving forward in 3D printing?
Oh, man,
I know there's a lot.
I wish you'd give me a pre-questionnaire, because I know I've seen some really, really interesting stuff. I think one of the, obviously what's going on in medical is just astounding that we can basically print body parts, a new jaw for somebody, new structural parts for people. This is my favorite, because I like all kinds of technologies. And the one that I find that I'm most fascinated with today are, I don't have the words, the things that turn your body into a robot, right?
Oh,
that,
exoskeletons.
Exoskeletons.
Yes.
And you can print an exoskeleton parts now. So to me, that just brings all my favorite, I like UAVs too. But those are all my favorite technologies of the future.
And I do think that exoskeletons will become speaking of medical, has just unbelievable ramifications. From how we set broken bones to everything moving forward from that. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, after the break, everybody, Kat and I will continue our discussion on 3D printing and probably what we see the future going to. So come on back.
You're never more than a few minutes from a weather update here on SuperTalk 1270.
Are we live?
Yeah.
All right. Waiting for the lead in there again, That's okay.
I can play it.
That's okay. It's okay. Hey, welcome back to the Tech Ranch, everybody. Jim, you and I always talk about this. You and I should not have the show on Mondays.
No.
Yeah. We always
Follow
seem to be
the
going
Guru
through our
of
stuff.
Geek
There we
at
go.
There she is.
Facebook.com/The Tech Ranch, or Twitter at Guru of Geek, or thetechranch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
All right, and thank you, Jim. I need that ego boost. The Guru of Geek.
Put a big SMH on Facebook there.
Okay. Yes.
Slap in my head. I learned that one. That's a new one I learned over the
We'll
weekend.
do that. Yes. Have you? Speaking of that, though, are you a Weird Al fan?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that video called Word Crimes yet?
Yes, I have.
Is that?
You want me to pull it up here?
Go
Give me a
ahead.
couple
That'd be
minutes
great.
and I will pull it up.
Okay. I think it's fantastic, and Jim will pull it up, and we'll play just a couple seconds of it. But have you seen it, Kat?
Sure.
Have you really seen this?
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. So, Jim, she online. There we go.
As a former English major, I relate to it completely.
Well, I think it's amazing, and I don't think Weird Al's ever had a number one album.
No, it's a number one. Yeah.
And it's a number one album, and I'm thinking it's driven by this song, and people, in that 35 plus realm probably relate to this because our younger generation uses all of these, whatever you want to call them, because of texting or whatever.
Right.
And now, of course, we all complain about it. And of course, you as a journalist.
It's a writer, sure. And all my writer friends were passing that around when it came out. Although it's really just Schoolhouse Rock isn't it?
Yeah. It is, yeah.
For the 2014 generation.
But it is
and
clever.
I say that in a very Schoolhouse Rock was really clever too.
Junction, what's your function?
So I say that in a complimentary way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead and play it, Jim. I think this is
hooking up words, phrases, and I forget.
Okay. Anyway. Thank
All
you.
right, we're gonna play this, and if you haven't heard it yet, I know we're getting way off topic here, but just go ahead and play the whole 3-minute thing. I think it's fabulous.
Everybody, shut up. Everyone, listen up. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Woo! If you can't write in the proper way, if you don't know how to conjugate, maybe you flunked that class, and maybe now you find that people mock you online. Okay, now here's the deal. I'll try to educate you. Gonna familiarize you with the nomenclature. You learn the definitions of nouns and prepositions. Literacy's your mission, and that's why I think it's a good time to learn some grammar. What? Now did I stammer? Work on that grammar. You should know when it's less or it's fewer. Like people who were never raised in a sewer. I hate these word crimes. Like I could care less. That means you do care. At least a little. Be a moron. Hey, you better slow down and use the right pronoun. Show the world you're no clown. Say you got an IT followed by apostrophe. Yes, now what does that mean? You would not use this in this case. As a possessive, it's a contraction. What's a contraction?
Well, it's the shortening of a word or group of words by omission of a single letter.
Okay, now here's some notes. Syntax, you're always mangling. No X in espresso. Your participles dangling. But I don't want your drama. If you really want, leave out that Oxford comma. Just keep in mind that these are you. Are words not letters? Get it together. Use a spell checker. You should never write words using numbers unless you're 7 or your name is Prince. I hate these word crimes. You really need them. Full-time proofreader. I mean those crimes. You dumb mouth breather. Well, you should hire some kind of linguist to help you distinguish what is proper English. One thing I ask of you, time to learn your homophones is past due. Learn to diagram a sentence too. Always say to whom, don't ever say to who. And listen up when I tell you this. I hope you never use quotation marks for emphasis. You finished 2nd grade, I hope you can tell if you're doing good or doing well. Better figure out the difference. Irony is not coincidence. And I thought that you'd gotten it through your skull, but what's figurative and what's literal? Oh, but just now you said you literally couldn't get out of bed. That really makes me want to literally smack a crowbar upside your stupid head. Email, it's quite apparent. Your grammar's errant. You're incoherent. Saw your blog post. It's really fantastic. That was sarcastic. 'Cause you write like a spastic. I hate these word crimes. Your prose is dopey. Think you should only write an emoji. You're a lost cause. Go back to preschool. Get out of the gene pool. Try your best to not drool. Never mind, I give up.
All right, everybody, and that is Word Crimes by Weird Al Yankovic. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So I don't know what you think, Kat, but I love it. I think it's fantastic.
The video is good too. You get a lot of punctuation marks, kind of dancing and twerking around.
I think you need to. I mean, it's great to listen to the song, but you really appreciate it better if you watch the video.
Yeah, it has the lyrics too.
Yeah, it does. So you can kind of follow along with what he's saying. But it's I just think it's fantastic. And, I've actually taken his inspiration now, and I'm going to actually, because I feel like I'm adapting to our younger generation by when I'm texting and using all of the analogies or whatever you want to call them, the LOLs and
LOL.
yeah, and whatever else
LMAFO.
yeah, and just like in the song, you use the letter B and to state the word B, or R or what have you. And, this is maybe one of those areas that maybe we shouldn't adapt. There's a lot of things that I think we should adapt to the younger generation, but the actual English language is probably not one of them. So
No.
Why do you think that?
That's a good question, because our language is always adaptive, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we always struggle with should language be prescriptive or descriptive?
Okay.
So are we prescribing to people how they should use our language, or should our language adapt and say, well, this is how people are using the language? And I think recently I saw that literally can now mean figuratively if you want it to mean
Sure.
that.
Sure.
Yeah, at that point you're kind of like, okay, well, I'm not sure that the language is working for us if we don't know the difference between literally and figuratively.
Right.
But overall, the teenagers are going to win. They always do. Mm-hmm. The language we have today isn't the language that Shakespeare wrote. And
Yeah, they won with rock and roll, didn't they?
right.
Tech geezers piping in there. So yeah.
So I mean, I don't have an answer for you. I'm just saying that's always been a conflict between prescriptive language and descriptive language.
Well, I think if you're going to break the rules, you should know the rules you're breaking.
I guess that's true. Yes. And when it comes to maybe writing, in a blog situation or in a newspaper or on a resume, I mean, what I see a lot is a lot of this language that we use for texting is carrying over to that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you read through the stuff and you're not really sure what the person is writing actually means because they're not using proper, or I guess what I would consider proper English.
And in a situation like that, it may be taking away from your credibility.
Yes.
I saw this great movie over the weekend. I had a TiVo from earlier, Lust for Life.
Okay.
The one with Kirk Douglas as Van Gogh.
Okay.
And there's a scene early in the movie where he meets one of his new mentors when he was still a young guy. And the mentor says, you've got some interesting ideas here. I can see you want to break the rules, but first you got to learn the rules. First you have to master your craft. Then you can move on from there by breaking the rules.
Sure.
In other words, first learn the rules, then you can break them.
Absolutely. And, I collect old newspapers, like from the 1800s. And, a lot of the S's look like F's, just the way the proper English was back then. And it takes a while to get used to reading something when it's written that way, whereas in today's world, of course, an S is an S and an F is an F. So it can be so...
And I got to ask you, how's your handwriting these days?
It's terrible.
My handwriting is good because I went to Catholic school.
Mine used to be really good. I can barely do it anymore.
There's only one reason that I even went into computers back in the 80s, and that's because I had terrible handwriting. So, I mean, that's what forced me to kind of go in there. But anyway, wow, did we get off topic here?
Yes, we did.
But let's get back to 3D printers after Weird Al. I'm going to send Weird Al a note and just thank him for taking us off topic for 15 minutes here. But I do love the song, so go check out the video on YouTube.
Yeah.
3D printing, some of the cool things that are coming out that I absolutely think is great. Well, first of all, I guess we don't have a lot of time for the break here. What is the cost point for getting into a 3D printer right now, Kat?
I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm all about vision and,
Well, believe it or
cool
not,
stuff, but I actually haven't priced them out. I think it's getting lower and lower. And I think
under $400.
I was going to say I was about $250 for a basic.
There might be some that are in that range. I mean, it is not like it's out of reach for anybody anymore.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that there are a lot of different there are a lot of different methods of doing additive manufacturing, and there are a lot of different materials, and your home 3D printer may not be able to do. There's guys printing houses out of concrete,
right.
And they're all doing different things, and they have different strengths and weaknesses, and you need to remember that when people talk about what a 3D printer can do.
But I think a lot of people understand that nowadays because the same thing is true with regular printers. I mean, if you want to do wide format printing, you're not going to be able to do that with a regular home printer, or if you want 50 or 100 pages a minute, you're going to have to pay more for that. So I think that hopefully people understand that you kind of get what you pay for with this stuff. So.
That's true, but just to be alert to the fact that just because this printer won't do what you're looking for, there may be another printer
absolutely.
that does.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, after the break, I promise we will get back to 3D printing. So come on back.
Right now, 61.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own SuperTalk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank everybody who listens to our program across the country and around the world on the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. We're on the Blueberry Network, of course, now on TuneIn, and, of course, our own app, Radio Pup. So you can join us in all kinds of different places across the country. In studio, Kat McClintock. Kat is a freelance writer and editor, and she kind of specializes in technical writing. I was going to say technical things or technical jargon, but I guess you kind of fit into all that stuff.
Technical writing tends to imply that you're giving people instructions on how to operate software. What I do, I started out in that area. What I do now is more marketing writing. I write blog posts for a lot of 3D CAD companies, often under other people's names. And the exciting part about that is that I get to interview tech companies all over the country about what they're doing and how they're using their CAD software and how they're using their data management software, which is a whole other show. And it's very cool and exciting.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
I bet it's fantastic, actually. So we've been talking a lot about 3D printers and, where we think things are going to go in the future. And over the break, you and I were talking a little bit about how printers now, or 3D printers, are starting to mix materials.
Right.
And that's going to be the new frontier, and that's going to open up a whole nother opportunity, because right now, basically, a printer will print PLA, plastic, or some of them are starting to dabble into metals a little bit.
Right.
But it's hard to put the two together. And
because they have different melting points.
That's exactly right,
and
yes.
So if you're using a technique that requires melting, that's going to be a real challenge.
Right.
But there are techniques that don't require melting.
Yes.
And
go ahead. You were talking about the one in the break there too.
A layering technique.
Okay.
Yeah, and there might be some others, but yeah. So those are just challenges. Those are just design. Those are just engineering challenges, and that's how I always look at everything. You say, well, this is a barrier. There's no way this can ever take off. And there's no such thing. They're just all engineering challenges.
Right.
And they'll overcome them.
Yep.
Over time.
Yep.
So.
And you're starting to see that now.
Right.
We were just talking about there's a 3D printer now that's coming out that prints circuit boards. Mm-hmm. And you think about that possibility. Oh my goodness.
Right. So now you might be able to print your cell phone at home.
Yes.
Now, is that a rigid circuit board or is it a flexible? Do you know?
I didn't investigate that any further.
It's only a matter of time.
Right.
Is my point. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, and you think about just the ability to get product quickly. Let's say you have a main board on a computer that went down or whatever. Instead of having to maybe ship it from a location or whatever, maybe now there's a place in your local area that has one of these 3D printers that can just grab the plans and print it for you. And in a matter of a couple hours, you have it.
Well, and this is one of the more exciting things that are coming out of additive manufacturing. The military is starting to use it in hard-to-reach locations. So if you have a piece of equipment that goes down someplace that you can't get a UPS truck,
right?
You can certainly send a file over the internet,
yes,
and print it on location.
Yep.
And that's where
it's
this
huge.
Is starting to be really disruptive to how we're used to doing manufacturing.
And I'm just trying to SpaceX. They launched a Falcon 9 rocket, and they have a 3D printed oxidizer valve on there. They're just, I think they just wanted to prove that it's possible because, of course, we talk a lot about on the show about, if we're going to further space exploration, one of the issues is that you just can't bring a whole warehouse of spare parts. And look at the issues we've had in the past because they didn't have spare parts.
Apollo 13.
Yeah, a great example. Imagine how that would have went, although... I guess it turned out okay.
Well, the point was they had to improvise with
right.
the stuff they had.
Right. But imagine if they could have manufactured something.
It would have changed the movie for sure.
Yes, that's for sure. Absolutely.
So typically right now, additive manufacturing is big in medical, aerospace, and automotive. Those are the three industries that are leaning heavily on it, as well as the maker community, which is the guys at home just coming up with their own stuff.
Right.
So,
So let's talk about medical a little bit here. There's some amazing things. We had a doctor on the show 6 or 8 months ago from Sweden who actually had printed an ear. And we just thought that was absolutely fascinating, and that it wasn't even something that took weeks or days. I mean, it was something that the person came in the morning and they I suppose scanned his other ear, and he came back that afternoon and they affixed his ear to the side of his head. That's just amazing.
Right.
So, and I know this is external parts, and of course that's an ear is probably one of the easiest things that maybe a 3D printer could manufacture, but this just opens up an unbelievable realm of possibility, correct?
Sure. And one way that they're already using it is even internally is they'll scan your heart, say, and or some other part of your body internally, and the surgeon can practice on your 3D duplicate, your 3D clone, and they can, before they go in and actually start messing around with your live heart, they can mess with your model heart, and they know what they're into. Much more effective than a CT scan, for example.
Yes. Yep. And you were talking, too, that you had a story about exoskeletons that you wanted to talk about.
And this isn't really about additive manufacturing, but simply that I first heard about exoskeletons and how you would use those when I was doing research about Japanese farming. And one of the big challenges in Japan is that the population is just aging out, especially the rural population.
Okay.
And so how do you keep those elderly people able to lift bales? Now, Japanese hay bale is much smaller than a U.S. hay bale.
Okay.
The farms are much smaller. But there's still a lot of labor that needs to be done on the farm.
Yep.
And the labor force is getting older and older. So they are starting to experiment with using exoskeletons to assist labor in Japan. That was the first place I ever heard of a practical application for them.
So
and
have you
think
actually
that's really
seen this
exciting.
work?
Well, just in videos.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's
Interesting.
fabulous. It just makes you stronger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's certainly a take out of a movie. You and I need to have a talk, and Jim too, one of these days, about the technology that's evolved from movies. Go back 20 years, and not Star Trek or Star Wars, other movies that we've seen some technology move forward in. But anyway, another show. So other 3D printing. What about organs? I mean, are you thinking that organs are going to be a possibility in the future?
I don't know why not. I mean, I believe that I've just heard a hint of this, that they're starting to use cells as the material to do additive manufacturing. So if
that
you
is
can
correct.
Start layering cells on top of each other,
Yep.
I'm not sure what you couldn't do.
They're using what they call bioplasma, I think is what it's called, and then they inject the DNA into this, and they've actually used 3D printers to print skin, for burn victims. And there was one particular case that, something that they figured this person would be scarred for life because of a serious burn, but within days completely recovered because they actually added in they didn't take skin from another part of the body and graft it over or whatever. They actually printed the skin over the top of that area, and you wouldn't even know there was a burn there today.
So just a human Band-Aid.
Yes, that's exactly right. And speaking of that is another place that I see 3D printers would be, in war areas where you have, the doctors that we have maybe in those situations just don't have the equipment, or they don't have a bandage.
Or the replacement parts, or the tool. But a tool gets, yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, you think about it. If you had 4 or 5 printers sitting there, I mean, you could literally have one that's creating bandages, and you could have one that maybe, you had to replace whatever type of parts or whatever, or it's unbelievable when you think about it. Actually,
it is, and I think we haven't even begun.
We have,
like we said at the beginning,
not begun.
But I do want to add that when you start talking about what you can do with 3D printing. You do have to think about what 3D printing will never be able to do, which is make you a better engineer. Okay, so parts still, even coming back to a homemade coffee cup, let's say, you still need to know how to do work your CAD system.
Sure.
And you still need to worry about regulations and regulatory issues. You still need to worry about safety issues. You need to know what your materials can do and what your materials can't do. So there's this whole realm around that I think we don't talk about when we're kind of being all excited about the maker movement and
Sure.
3D CAD, who's responsible when the part that you spit out and sold at the craft fair, kills somebody inadvertently, or something goes wrong, or maybe you just have a garage down on Main Street, and somebody comes in and they need a new air pump, and you print them up one, and it's who's responsible when that printed product breaks.
Yes.
And so that's just stuff to keep in mind. We still need engineers.
Yep.
We still need a lot of knowledge to really use this technology correctly.
But it is very exciting when you think about it. I mean,
yeah, it's really exciting. Yeah.
so, and it's not unlike, we talk a lot about autonomous vehicles on this too, and I think some of the same challenges are there. Who's responsible when a car that's driving by itself has an accident with another car? These technologies offer very unique situations or things that we're not used to. But you can go back 100 years from now, when the first horse had an accident with a car, somebody was riding a horse, had an accident with a car, and that happened. In fact, I actually know of people in our local area that died in those type of situations. Well, not personally, but family members that talk about this because of lack of stop signs and things like this. And, we're kind of at that same part, in our history again, where we're having this paradigm shift to these newer technologies, and our regulations are going to have to follow somehow or another.
And in addition, there's a lot of opportunity for people who want to go learn how to use CAD systems.
Oh my goodness!
This is the time to be getting out there. I actually think that using CAD systems will be as everyday as using a word processor.
I agree with that.
Down the road, and so this is really a good time to be getting in there. And I know I'm pitching because that's the industry that I'm in, but that to me, from a professional perspective, that's the most exciting thing about CAD, 3D printing or additive manufacturing, is that all of a sudden we're all going to become CAD jockeys.
And we're going to need more engineers instead of less. That's going to be a burgeoning industry too. All right, everybody, after the break, Ken Sanders with the Volt Report, and I'm thinking we're going to be talking about autonomous vehicles, so come on back.
Right now, 61.
Your news leader, weeknights at 6 and 10. Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
Welcome back to the Tech Ranch, everybody. In studio, we have Kat McClintock, and on the phone, the glorious and infamous Ken Sanders with the Volt Report. How you doing, Ken?
Oh, man. Feeling a little inglorious eating some chocolate over here.
Well,
how you guys doing?
Well, we're doing okay. It's been a long time since we've had you on the show. We're excited to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
All right. Well,
I'm all over the place.
Let's get right into it here. I want to talk about this autonomous vehicle that you have on the Volt Report.
There's a couple of them. Which one you got there? The Novia?
Yes. The kind of the transport that's being used over in Tokyo, I believe it is.
Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah, in Asia.
Okay.
Somewhere
in that neighborhood, yes.
Okay, it's a cart vehicle. It's pretty cool because it's for the students out there. But it's like an experimental device that they have for kind of testing the safety of autonomous vehicles, handling, people in crowds, sort of. So they have it out there transporting between a couple of campuses, just kind of grabbing students, picking them up, where maybe a bus stop would be, and then taking them across campus and parking itself and charging itself, running completely autonomously.
So does it, first of all, how many people does it hold?
It's about 6.
Okay. And is it a pre-described course, or is somebody able to hop in and say, "Hey, take me to this particular building," and it takes them there? How is that working?
Yeah, it's a predetermined course that they got there. In that sense, it's not as sophisticated as some of the autonomous vehicle technologies that they have going right now. I'm pretty sure that the thing that makes that one stand out really is that it has a wireless induction charging mechanism that they're also developing over there.
Okay.
Which is, of course, is when they park over a pad that wirelessly sends a charge of electricity into the battery there.
Gotcha. So when they're parking at a bus stop, so to speak, that it's actually charging itself while it's sitting there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what's really cool about that one. I
Interesting.
think.
It kind of looked like it had
aside from the fact that public transportation, is heading in that direction.
Well, I think what I like about this is that it's a real-world application for autonomous vehicles, and we've been, I think, starting to hope to see some of these type of things. Whether it's being used, in a bus stop fashion or in cars or what have you. But that's what I like about this is that it's being utilized and people are being moved because of it. So I think that's fantastic.
Right.
So, Kat, any comments on it at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I got another comment.
Yes.
I got another one, if you guys don't mind. I also want to say that those things are supposed to be safer, too.
Okay.
Not that public transportation accidents are frequent, but autonomous vehicles have a high level of safety. So when you're talking about people being transported, commuting on an autonomous vehicle, there's actually a higher degree of safety on board there because of their sensors.
Well, I mean, do you think that the day will come when we won't be allowed to drive our cars?
Wow.
Gnarly question.
That's a very, very, I do see the day coming when we tell our grandchildren that we used to actually physically drive these, so it's possible.
I heard a pilot speak a few years ago saying we are the last generation that will be flying our own planes, that so much of commercial flight is just pushing the buttons and letting the computer go with it. He didn't see that there would be a need for hands-on pilots within a few more years.
Interesting.
Here's what I think.
Yes.
We're maybe we won't be flying our own planes no more, and maybe we won't be driving our own cars no more, but we'll be in the pilot seat of our hover bikes. And that kind of stuff.
But
they can't take that away.
Is it a bike if you're hovering?
I don't know what you call that, a scooter?
Yeah, I guess you would. Yeah. Say, it'd be just like Back to the Future back in the 80s, or if you ever watched those shows, with the scooters
on the levitating highway.
That's exactly right. Yep, exactly right. Mm-hmm. So, speaking of induction power, I see that Starbucks is adding some cool things. Not that we're plugging Starbucks here, but it's kind of cool what they're doing. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Man, I'm at Starbucks all the time. I'll plug away.
Okay.
They rule. Sorry. I'm not sorry, though. I love Starbucks. They are. I love them for this, too. They're initiating a rollout of wireless cell phone charging pads that are, for the individual user that's going to be sitting down at a seat. They'll have their own little charging port. It works with a Duracell Power Mat, which is a product anybody could buy, where you just snap this little pack on your phone and you set it on. You could just lay it down on top of this little power mat and it charges up your phone. No wires needed. And Starbucks is in the process of rolling out about 100,000 of those into their stores nationwide.
Now I've seen at CES this year, they had quite a few different tables with this technology built into it. Now, I wonder, I'm looking at the photo that you have on your website here. Are they actually purchasing these tables to put into Starbucks, or are they just modifying what they have there right now?
It's a eco, I like to recycle stuff. I would like to think that they're just going to modify.
Okay. So, you had a solar charging port that could be used in parks or whatever too, where they have a little USB cord on them or what have you that you can charge your phone with. Are you starting to see some adaptation to that as well? I think we lost Ken.
I think we did.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. We're waiting patiently for Ken. Ken, you there?
Yeah.
All right.
I think we lost contact.
Yeah, I think we lost you there for just a second. Thanks for getting back to us. So, I think we talked a while back about these solar charging units that have USB ports on them, and people or communities, whatever, starting to put them in parks or what have you. Are you starting to see adaptation of that as well?
I'm not too sure because Starbucks is kind of like hooked up to the grid.
Okay.
I guess it would depend on if the local area is hooked up to a wind turbine or a solar plant. I have something that I kind of want to bring up on that note too, though, of renewable energies. Are you guys? Have you heard about the state of emergency declared in California on the account of the droughts?
I have not.
Yeah, so water shortages are like a big deal right now.
Right. I guess I have heard that. Yes.
Right. You heard something about it, I'm sure. It's like kind of getting out there, but I used to spend a decent amount of time in California, so I'm paying attention to it. And also the people in Michigan, there's 150,000 people in Michigan right now without water. And there's a renewable resource technology coming out right now called microbial fuel cells, which they're actually testing in Ohio State University. And it basically works like biomass to create electricity, only substitute the biomass for water sewage. So they're actually talking about taking water sewage treatment facilities, replacing their sludge techniques right now with this microbial fuel cell technology that is able to create an intense amount of electricity that could potentially be the renewable energy that Starbucks is using to power their pet.
Is there going to be a punchline here?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it too here. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things that are coming down the pike. I know I was visiting with a gentleman not too long ago. He's a nano engineer and developing nano power plants, I guess you could call them.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that you're able to hook these things up to flaring, so if you got some flaring going on at an oil well or wherever you have those type of things, you can actually convert them to electricity and it'll be at a reasonable price. So there's all kinds of things coming down the pike in that realm, I think.
It'd be a godsend if they see major development like that. Like, because when you got the word nano, we're talking about like a small, tiny little particle, but it just packs such a powerful punch. Like, I'm sure like a miniature nano power factory would, produce a sufficient amount of power.
Well, at least the power of the area that it's sitting around, and that's the thing. If you can power something and not have it on the grid, there's a lot of third world applications right there. I mean, when you're thinking about that, yeah, and could significantly impact the world in general. So the last fun thing on your website is motorized shoes.
Oh man, rocket shoes. It's cool. It's kind of corny too, but like what person wouldn't want little rocket shoes to like ride around?
I see you dreaming already, kid. Yeah, I see these shoes here they look like 6-inch wheels attached to this side, and they got a little rocket pack on the back here.
Yeah, a little electric motor.
Okay.
So
okay. Cool.
It'll scoot you around. All you got to do is like bounce up on the wheels and they go.
All right, very cool. All right, everybody, just go to thevoltreport.com if you want to see those and other things that Ken and I were just talking about. Kat, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. This was
Jim,
great.
pleasure as always.
A pleasure, sir.
All right, and until next week, everybody, take care.